आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदया, माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर नंदिनी साहू मैडम, हमारे आज के विशिष्ट वक्तागण डॉक्टर देवेंद्र सिंह सर एवं डॉक्टर विभूति गौर मैम, उपस्थित सभी प्राध्यापकगण, शोधार्थी, विद्यार्थी एवं प्रिय प्रतिभागियों, आप सभी का हिंदी विश्वविद्यालय पश्चिम बंगाल द्वारा आयोजित तुलनात्मक विश्व साहित्य विषयक इस महत्वपूर्ण वेबिनार में हार्दिक स्वागत है। आज का ये वेबिनार तुलनात्मक विश्व साहित्य के अंतर्गत इंडियन पोएटिक्स इन वर्ल्ड पोएटिक्स टुवर्ड्स कंपैरेटिव एस्थेटिक्स और इंडियन एस्थेटिक्स पर मूलतः केंद्रित है। आप सभी को मैं सूचित करना चाहूंगी कि कुछ अपरिहार्य कारणों से हमारी अध्यक्ष महोदया माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर नंदिनी साहू जी आज इस आभासी मंच पर प्रत्यक्ष रूप से उपस्थित तो नहीं हो पा रही हैं। However, she has sent a video message for the inaugural address. तो इसी क्रम में मैं हमारी अध्यक्ष महोदया माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर नंदिनी साहू जी का संक्षिप्त परिचय प्रस्तुत करते हुए उनका स्वागत करना चाहूंगी। प्रोफेसर नंदिनी साहू मैम एक प्रतिष्ठित शिक्षाविद, सुप्रसिद्ध कवयित्री, सृजनात्मक लेखिका, आलोचक, लोक साहित्य की विदुषी तथा इंडियन इंग्लिश लिटरेचर की एक विशिष्ट एवं सशक्त हस्ताक्षर हैं। She is the former director of the School of Foreign Languages, इंदिरा गांधी नेशनल ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी न्यू दिल्ली, और आपके नाम पर लगभग 23 मौलिक एवं संपादित कृतियां प्रकाशित हैं। आप स्नातक एवं स्नातकोत्तर दोनों स्तरों पर स्वर्ण पदक प्राप्त कर चुकी हैं तथा अंग्रेजी अध्ययन में आपके उत्कृष्ट योगदान के लिए आपको भारत के माननीय उपराष्ट्रपति द्वारा स्वर्ण पदक से सम्मानित किया गया है। आपको अनेक प्रतिष्ठित सम्मानों से विभूषित किया गया है, जिनमें माइकल मधुसूदन अकेडमी अवार्ड, लाइफ टाइम अचीवमेंट पुरस्कार, टैगोर सम्मान और ऑनररी फेलोशिप का एम्बेसडर ऑफ इटर्निटी अवार्ड, इंटरनेशनल अकेडमी ऑफ एथिक्स इंडिया विशेष रूप से उल्लेखनीय है। आपके व्यापक शोध क्षेत्रों में न्यू लिटरेचर स्टडीज, क्रिटिकल थ्योरी, फोकलोर एंड कल्चर स्टडीज, इंडियन नॉलेज ट्रेडिशन एंड कंपैरेटिव वर्ल्ड लिटरेचर जैसे विविध एवं महत्वपूर्ण आयाम सम्मिलित हैं। अब मैं तकनीकी टीम से श्री अमन जी से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि वे माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर नंदिनी साहू मैडम का वीडियो संदेश साझा करें।
I am immensely happy to invite the two eminent speakers for today, Dr. Vibhuti Gaur and Dr. Devender Singh, to be a part of the Hindi University Special Lecture Series on Comparative World Literatures. Both Dr. Vibhuti Gaur and Dr. Devender Singh, they have been closely associated with me in various capacities, like fellow researchers, colleagues, and people taking interest in Hindu studies and Indian knowledge systems. I have long association with both of them, and I know the kind of research and the contribution that they have been doing to Indian knowledge systems and Hindu studies, and also English studies and cultural studies. Dr. Vibhuti Gaur has been my colleague at Indira Gandhi National Open University from the Department of English. Apart from her interests in English studies and designing various courses and programs in English studies and taking classes for research in English studies, she has been deeply engaged with the preparation of study material on Indian knowledge systems for the English department. I congratulate Dr. Vibhuti Gaur for her wide reading and for her continuous contribution to Indian knowledge systems. She is a very popular teacher. She is extremely student supportive, and she is a very warm person when it comes to talking about Dr. Vibhuti a bit personally. I have deep admiration for her. Dr. Vibhuti, we welcome you to Hindi University to be a part of our special lecture series, which has been creating ripples in Indian academia. And coming to Dr. Devender Singh, I know him since my association with Delhi University, and also I know his research, his contributions to Indian knowledge systems, even to the School of Law, and then to various courses in Delhi University. Recently, they have designed a unique course on folk literature for the Department of English in Delhi University. That is where Dr. Devender Singh has contributed. He once again is a very student supportive teacher. He is popular among his students in Delhi University and outside. I have seen him doing lot of work not just for Delhi University but rather for various other institutions in the country with commitment and dedication. I have admiration and appreciation of Dr. Devender Singh, and he has been a very, very good friend of mine since many years now. I wish him all the best for all the academic endeavors that he has been taking up. Dr. Devender Singh and his association with Indian knowledge systems and Hindu studies, once again, I would strongly say that they are very deep rooted. And this lecture series from Hindi University West Bengal on comparative world literatures, it has been well accepted in Indian academia. Today's lecture, two lectures to be delivered by Dr. Vibhuti and Dr. Devender Singh, will somehow address world literatures and Hindu studies and Indian knowledge systems as subjects that are connected, that are interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, and they are connected with each other. There are a few points that I would like to understand from two experts for today. The first point that I would like to know from the two experts today, the first point is epistemic power and the asymmetry of comparative world literatures vis-a-vis Hindu studies and Indian knowledge systems. How this subject has been deeply misrepresented, misunderstood, and how the scholars in Indian academia like Dr. Devender Singh and Dr. Vibhuti Gaur, they have been addressing this, is one thing that I would like to know from them. And then the selective universalism that scholars somehow bring into Indian knowledge systems, it's something that disturbs me. I request the two speakers for today to address it and to create a broader canvas vis-a-vis Hindu studies and Indian knowledge systems in world literatures. And then there is this colonial hermeneutics in comparative world literatures when it comes to Hindu literary pedagogy. I would request the speakers to enlighten our students and faculty on this particular subject and then create a larger platform for them so that they can do further research on comparative world literatures vis-a-vis Hindu studies. And then when it comes to Hindu studies, there is always text over practice bias in Indian academia. I request the eminent speakers today to address this as well and create a pedagogy of teaching and doing research on Hindu studies in world literatures departments. And then there is this ethics of representation. There is Hindu studies in world literatures, which are kind of going through an epistemic humility. We romanticize Hindu studies, we romanticize Indian knowledge systems. Rather than doing that, let us bring those to the university table and discuss with our scholars and students and create a better platform for them towards research. I welcome Dr. Devender Singh and Dr. Vibhuti Gaur, two very dear friends and excellent scholars, to be a part of Hindi University Special Lecture Series. Namaskar and welcome.
माननीय कुलपति महोदया के प्रेरणादायी संदेश के लिए हार्दिक आभार. The message has really beautifully highlighted the significance, relevance, and wider academic importance of today's program. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's first speaker, Dr. Devender Singh, who is an associate professor in the Department of English and Joint Dean Academic Affairs, University of Delhi. He has around 20 years of teaching experience in English literature and language. He has also served as director in charge and academic head under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. Dr. Singh is a scholar, policy thinker, poet, author, and playwright. His major areas of interest include nationalism, equality, patriotism, Indian knowledge tradition, literature, translation studies, and social impact. He has received several prestigious honors, including the Bharat Ratna Bhimrao Ambedkar Award, Global Gandhi Award, Ambedkar Ratna Award, and World Leadership Award for Excellence in Education and Social Impact at Oxford University. His plays, including Valley, 370, and In Between, have received significant appreciation. Now, I would like to request Dr. Devendra Singh sir for his very insightful lecture. So, please.
Thank you, Paromita, for this exaggerated introduction. And the kind of work you are doing is excellent. This university has taken a lot of initiative. I also congratulate the Honorable Vice-Chancellor for taking such initiative, such a very good initiative that will be helpful not only to the students, but to the scholars across the world. And because now we are connected with the world through virtual medium, so this will go far away, and this lecture series will be fruitful. I think this will create a lot of literature. This will also create an industry of criticism. So because I have seen those lectures, and these are variety of lectures, so these lectures will have deep impact. And the best thing which I have noticed so far is regarding the promotion of Indian knowledge system. Actually, Indian knowledge system doesn't need promotion, but over the year, Indian knowledge system was ignored by the scholars, and especially scholars from our country. So now we need to revitalize and highlight the Indian knowledge system and how it works and how it was perceived by the entire world and how this system was transformed and regenerated across the world. So that we need to highlight. So my topic of presentation today, this lecture is Indian aesthetics, how Indian aesthetics works and how across the world scholars perceived, how the scholars actually interpreted Indian literature and Indian aesthetics and incorporated into their work. That is very important to know because this system, our system, this knowledge system gave the entire world certain things which are universal. And this is one of the qualities of literature. So before we start, I would like to share some slides with you and then we'll start. I hope this PPT is visible. Yeah. So Indian knowledge system and Indian aesthetics, these are two very deeply connected fields. And we need to understand what is aesthetics actually. Unless we understand aesthetics, we cannot understand what is the meaning of Indian knowledge system. Especially in literature, when we talk about aesthetics, so there are some ready-made definitions which we keep telling to our students and we come across in different books and articles and newspapers. People say that literature and aesthetics, they are connected in certain ways and they are just appreciation of beauty. And any kind of appreciation of beauty is aesthetics, which is a very conventional, which is a very traditional definition. Indian aesthetics is something else. And when the Indian scholars defined aesthetics, that gives entirely new thing to the world. So all Indian scholars, they defined aesthetics in a different way. Let me tell you, our literature, Indian knowledge system is very, very scientific. We do not say anything in here. There is a very solid base. There is a very deep philosophy and some examples which support whatever we say and whatever we impart with the world. So when we talk about aesthetics, then we also include science in aesthetics. And I'll focus on, of course, art and beauty also. I'll also highlight the form of arts, and I will focus on origin and function of poetry. Then how art goes beyond the boundaries which we set generally, because art cannot be within boundaries always. We think we break the boundaries, we set another boundaries, and we keep doing certain things. So these things are historical. So we will talk about the historicity of Indian aesthetics also a little bit, but my focus will also be on Indian aesthetics in research, how we use aesthetics in research, and what are these certain areas where we need to work upon. So if we talk about the definition, I already spoken to you that we focus on the traditional definition, which is appreciation of beauty, or art and beauty, or perception of beauty, both natural and man-made. Sometimes we also talk about two contemporary concepts like non-differentiation and absolute non-representation. So excessive representation and differentiation, when we talk about two things in aesthetics, they give a different perspective. They bring a different perspective to the study of aesthetics. But what actually aesthetics is, we need to understand two things. Aesthetics is basically science and philosophy of writing, maybe poetry, maybe any other work of art. When we talk about literature, we generally talk about writings, but literature is not confined to writings. Literature is sculpture also, literature is painting also. So whatever is there, whatever expresses something is piece of literature. And the best definition of literature, apart from the conventional definition that it is the mirror of society, which is not the correct definition actually, in my opinion, because when you stand before the mirror, you just see only one side of your image. But if we talk about literature, so literature doesn't show you the only one side of anything. Literature talks about all the sides, literature talks about all the times. So literature cannot be the mirror only that reflects only one side, okay, only the front side. No. Literature goes deep into the core of human psyche, and literature brings out certain ideas which can evoke, provoke, and enhance your thought process. So there is a scientific base of literature. It should be science, and it should be the blend of science and philosophy. So what is science? Sometimes when we talk about science of beauty and science of philosophy of beauty, what science is involved in aesthetics, that we need to understand. So when we talk about any piece of art, so there are four, five things which we need to take into consideration. The grammar, when you talk about writing, so which is very scientific, which is fixed. There are certain rules which are fixed. And when we go ungrammatical, or we bring epigrammatic brevity in our writing, that gives a different kind of form to our writing or our piece of literature. So grammar is generally fixed, whether in Indian context or in Western context. Both the grammars across, even the grammars across the world, they are fixed. Second is structure. So literature, especially written, when we say that we are going to compose something, or we are going to write something, or we present something, we follow a particular structure. And let me tell you how this is connected to the entire world. There is a comparative perspective. When we talk about structure, we generally go back to Ferdinand de Saussure, and we talk about his book, Structuralism, his theory on structuralism. And according to structuralist theories, there is already a structure in human brain before performance, whether in writing or speaking. But before Ferdinand Saussure, let me tell you how this concept is related to Indian knowledge system and how it traveled across the world. We started our journey, the journey of Indian aesthetics, from Shunya, which is zero, we call, and it is having an oval shape. And the shunya is having two meanings: nothingness, and this theory has very well been incorporated by Shakespeare in his plays. The theme of nothingness, we know it very well that Shakespeare talks about nothingness in King Lear. He says nothing comes out of nothing, which is one of the meanings of zero, that nothingness, nothing. Second is this oval shape encircles everything. So from nothing, which is zero, which you say that no existence, to existence of everything. And this oval shape which encircles everything, if you look at the shape of the galaxy, which is also oval, we think that zero encircles everything. And from this shunya, we move to structure. And this structure is not only taken or perceived very well by the Indian aestheticians, but also they transfer the same thing to the entire world. And that transmission of knowledge can be seen in different literatures. I'll give you the example from the Western world also. So one name particularly which gave structuralism to this world much before, so sure, is Bhartrihari. Bhartrihari talks about Shabd Brahman, Bhartrihari talks about Spota theory, and Bhartrihari talks about structure and meaning. So when he talks about structure and meaning, he also talks about two things. What Saussure says, deep and surface structure. What you read cannot be always conveying the same meaning what was there in the mind of the writer when at the time of writing or composition. Bhartrihari says that Spota theory, the production of sound, that tells you the meaning, that brings you closer to the meaning. And this production of sound, if you look at the human organs, especially speech organs, which produce sound. So this is also something close to your Spota theory or the blast. So the whole universe is actually the result of a blast, which produced different sounds, and one sound which dominated, as per our philosophy, is the sound of Omkar, which is Nad, we call it. It is not actually the sound which is unstructured. It incorporates so many things which gave birth to different sounds. And you know the 14 sutras of grammar, which was given by this Omkar sound. And this sound decided structures. So in this world, there are 14 grammars according to Indian knowledge system, and 13 of out of 14 were here in India, which over the period of time destroyed by the invaders. And we know that our treasure kept burning for months together, which was having a golden treasure. So Bhartrihari moved from Shunya to Shabd, and this knowledge system, Indian knowledge system, gave the entire world one theory that Shabd, the word, the sound, is actually divine. We say that Chomsky proved something. He came out with an idea of universal grammar. He also gave the theory of transformational and generative grammar. That human brain, and when a fetus is of 10 weeks, there is a blast, there is a spark in the fetus, and with that spark, human heart starts beating. And from the same day, same moment, your brain starts recording. And the first thing your brain records is the sound. And Chomsky could not perceive that idea actually. Chomsky says that we are born with innate linguistic capacity, and that's why we learn our first language, or which is mother tongue, or any other language up to a certain age. We learn them without efforts. That's correct. But if we look at Indian classics in the Mahabharata and even before the Mahabharata, in the Vedas and Upanishads, we keep saying, we keep talking about the transmission of knowledge through sounds. And Abhimanyu's case is very apparent now. The many universities, including Pennsylvania University, they have proved that we start learning pattern of knowledge and we start listening even in the womb of our mother. This is the power of Indian aesthetics, that how meaning is inculcated to the fetus and how meaning is perceived and later on it is used. Human brain is very, very creative. It supplies you whatever is there in you. And because the difference between the hardware of computer, which we call the brain of computer, hard disk, and human brain, is that this computer stores and supplies whatever you scroll upon or whatever you like. But human brain, apart from whatever is available, also creates things and it supplies. So this is the creative faculty of human brain, which has been generally ignored by the researchers, Western researchers, and they fixed it. So Social says that there are two structures only, okay, deep and surface structure. And Social says that those both the structures are fixed in your brain before, but later on, of course, this was this concept was broken by Derrida and Anandvardhan and Derrida. I'll compare the two. So Farida de Saussure and Bhartrihari. Then from structure to form, and from form to devices, and devices to meaning. This is the movement of actually Indian aesthetics. When Indian aesthetics moved from uh, grammar, from science to philosophy, then philosophy includes meaning, again, dhvani, implication, effect, and impact. What lesson do you learn? We were talking about the second thing, meaning, how meaning is perceived. Sometimes, because human brain is very engaged, and the entire lesson which we have given to the entire world actually is the peace of mind, concentration, because India is the only country that has given theory of peace to the entire world. Otherwise, we can see that we find invaders in the world, we find imperialists in the world. So, empire building and sort of encroachment and violence, it is actually not in the blood and brain of human psyche in India. Indian psyche is totally different, and when we gave the theory of peace, then we let the world know that the real meaning of life, real meaning of everything lies in peace, not in violence. So Anandavardhan is the second person whom I would like to quote. Anandavardhan gave the theory of dhvani. He worked upon the dhvani and meaning. And how meaning is perceived, let me give you an example. Anandavardhan says that what you speak, dhvani, conveys the meaning, and the way you use your words. Chomsky again says that tone, intonation, suprasegmental devices, they decide meaning of your text, your speech. Anandvardhan, in the 9th and 10th century, he talks about speech, dhvani, and he says dhvani is suggestion for meaning. And suggestion, we gave the world because in the Hindi university, I think your Hindi department must be teaching those things, and they're very necessary. That we convey meaning through three different ways. And these three different ways, which we call in Hindi, is Abhida, Lakshana, and Vyanjana. Okay. Then denotation, annotation, and connotation. When you say something and the same thing is perceived in the same way without giving a twist, so people are denoting. Then annotation, you add something and you work upon the particular properties of sound, particular meaning, and particular instances. It is then Lakshana. which is again a notation. Then there is a third meaning. What you say is entirely different, and what it is perceived and what meaning it carries is entirely different. So Indian aestheticians told the entire world that there is a science of meaning, and this is not based on what you read, what you perceive. That's why I said that I'll compare Derrida with Anandavardhan. Derrida said meaning lies beyond text, lies beyond words also. Words are just the sort of basis for meaning. But when we talk about the recent research and recent aestheticians, they say that when you say something and use a word, and that word conveys a very unconventional meaning, so that meaning cannot be understood without having the knowledge of the basic, the base meaning, the base word. If you know the meaning of go, so then you can understand I cannot do in one go. So words do not have meaning in isolation. Dhwani theory of Anandavardhan says that when you feel that there is a meaning always attached to a word, no. So words are contextual, and text and context are always different. So you need to read the context. This theory was given in the 10th century, which we study today, different theories, French theories, German theories, then American theories, British theories, and we perceive with them many theories of meaning. Let me tell you one more thing. Before Anandavardhan and other aestheticians of this world, especially the Indian subcontinent, we gave the entire world a theory which almost prepared the basis of all kinds of literature, written or in any other form, which is Russ theory. And let me talk about certain important things about it. Everybody knows that there are 9 sentiments. Earlier there were 8. Now we have 9 sentiments. But one small research which should be brought to people is why this theory, Russ theory, is having a particular order. Why we start Russ theory with the Sringar Ras and we end it with the Shant Ras. There must be, because nothing was done in isolation, nothing was done in vacuum. Everything is having a very, very solid and scientific basis. So Bharat Muni, when talks about Shringar Ras, so everybody knows that this particular sentiment is responsible for creation. Now look at the concept of Indian aestheticians. When we talk about science and scientific theories, we say that this world was created out of a violent action, which is a blast, Big Bang. And when we talk about life on Earth, so Indian aestheticians and the Western aestheticians, Western scientists rather, they say that there is a violent action, and after that violent action, we start the process of birth, giving birth to things. Indian aestheticians say, no, this is a very, very delicate theory. And Sringar is responsible for all kinds of creations. So first thing which we gave the world, that this is Shantrash. Okay, Sringar is not violent. Okay, that's why we end the theory with the Shantras. Sringar is not violent. That of course, when we start, when the life is started, there is a spark. That may be a sort of violence. And the same cell which is there in the womb of mother after 10 weeks, it witnesses a spark, and that spark may be a very, very micro, rather nano form of that Big Bang. which started the universe, which and there is another universe in the womb of mother, which is started through this. So this rus, this sentiment is responsible for life. Then second is harsh. People say that when we come on earth, we start weeping. The first performance of human being is weeping, and if we do not weep, this is the matter of concern. And there is a very good Hindi poet. He is an administrator also. I always love those lines which he wrote. Very apt lines. कि वो एक बार ही हंसी थी तेरे रोने पर, वरना हर बार उसने तेरे रोने पे आंसू बहाए. So when you took birth, when you came on earth and you wept, you cried. So your mother smiled on that cry. Otherwise, throughout life, she wept, she shed tears with your tears. That is actually the power of Hashras, that when you come in the earth, you are isolated, you feel isolated, and you need hush, you need, because this world is full of pain. And Indian aesthetics, this teaches us that we come in this world because we are not complete. And this world is also not complete. And I keep repeating this line that man and God, how can we define them? So incomplete God is man and complete man is God. All incarnations, all theories of incarnation, they say if you commit something which is against ethics, you will have to come on this earth to redeem your sins. So we are all sinners. That's why we are, or incomplete actually, that's why we are on this earth. And incomplete God is man. So our journey is from incompleteness to completeness. And that's why we need to learn Hashras. Then the third one is when from you move from Srangar, Hash, and the third is Karuna. Why Karuna? Because compassion. This theory says that everybody is suffering like you. And if you go back to the 19th century literature, romantic literature, English literature, to look at the poetry of Shelley, and he defines this, the art of compassion. And he also gives you the essence of this particular sentiment. The sweetest song are those that tell the saddest thought. We look before and after and pine for what is not. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest song are those that tell the saddest thought. So actually, we get pleasure even from the compassion. We get pleasure from the pain of others. Why? There are two types of pleasures. If somebody is in pain, you will get pleasure if you are not actually working on aesthetics. But if somebody is pained, you will also receive the same pain. And that pain, when strikes the pain, it becomes pleasure. So that's why we always get pleasure even from tragedy, that is tragic pleasure, the death of Lear, death of any other artist or protagonist in the play or in a story, that brings pleasure if the person is fighting and dies fighting. So we feel through this particular sentiment, this sentiment teaches us that we need to be compassionate. We need to be one with others having the same sentiment. Next sentiment is Veer-ras. And when we talk about Veer-ras, what actually Veer-ras is? When you are compassionate, this theory teaches you that now you have to show something to this world. Become courageous, teach the world that you are having enough courage to do some good work. And no work can be done without anger. And how anger is responsible for all kind of works. That has been, that this philosophy has very well been given by the Indian aestheticians. They say that anger should be transformed. No anger, no work can be done. And if you do not transform your anger, then the result of your anger will be bhayanak. And if anything is bhayanak, that will be fearful also for you. So you need to detach yourself. You need to create a sort of disgust for those things which should not be done. And if you create disgust in you for those things, then the result will be adbhut. Otherwise, that result will be those consequences will be very dangerous for you. And if you have the aesthetic pleasure, if you have the spiritual pleasure which Tagore talks about, ultimately you will rest in peace. Look at the poetry of T.S. Eliot, the one who studied 5 literatures, having the knowledge of 5 languages, and he studied Sanskrit, Indian classical literature very deeply, and came out with the conclusion that this theory dominates, Indian aesthetics dominates over all other literatures, all other aesthetic approaches. Just one example, he said that he gives the main title to his poem, the most celebrated poem, The Wasteland. And T.S. Eliot says that without having creative faculty in your brain, it is just like the piece of stone, barren, no productivity comes out. When he talks about burial of the dead, then he talks about 2, 3 things. We immerse death by water and burial of the dead. When we immerse the effigies, and in India we have this convention, in Bengal also, after Navratra or Durga Puja, you immerse the effigies into water. And people this may surprise people that we infused life into an effigy. We worshipped for 9, 10 days, and then suddenly we immerse it. Why? So one thing which Indian aesthetics teaches the entire world is that every time God has to sacrifice for the sake of mankind. And this is written in Indian classics, this is taught by Indian aesthetics. All incarnations, they came on earth, they bore pain, and they did good for mankind. They sacrificed their entire life for the sake of mankind. So when Eliot talks about 3 things, Datta, Davadhyam, and Damedam, that what is our duty, what do they teach us actually? In Vrihadaranyaka Upanishad, he has taken actually these 3 phrases, 3 words from Vrihadaranyaka Upanishad. There is a story when God's demons and the deities, they go to Brahma and they want him to tell them who is actually superior. So this Datta, Davadhyam, and Damedam theory is when you come on this earth, you are not only having your rights, but your duties also. And to give to others is the real duty. Second thing, Dayadham is having mercy upon others, be compassionate to others. And T.S. Eliot knew the importance of this word. He actually talks about certain things through symbols and images. And Dhammatham is the desire, burning the desires. So this is Indian aesthetics, Indian theories, Indian knowledge system that told the entire world what is the meaning of controlling and burning desires. Which desire should be controlled and which desire should be burnt. And I always give 2 examples. Example of Bhartrihari, who was a king and who left everything, denounced kingdom, came to forest, okay, and performed penance. And he has given the world, entire world, the theory of grammar, which is almost incomparable. You simply image theory, you simply cannot compare it with others. This is touchstone for the authors, writers who write in Sanskrit, and to compare with, check the correctness, they take it as touchstone. Second thing is Siddhartha became Buddha, and he told the entire world how to burn the desires and how to find yourself. We have lost in this world and we need to find ourselves. And he says, if you find yourself, you will find everything, because we are the epitome of the universe. And this theory, when you talk about the epitome of universe, again, I'm coming back to Indian aesthetics. You go back to our Upanishadic age. It says, Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande. So when you look at human beings, knowledge is not something which you find always in books or in the preaching sermons of others. No. Bhartrihari was followed by no teacher, no book, no tutor, and he gave the entire world the amount of knowledge which is almost impossible even today to create in this digital world. Similarly, Buddha, he gave the entire world the amount of knowledge which is incomparable. And now, today, many countries, more than 36 countries, they are following Buddhism and his theory, which is the part of Indian culture. So this is the power of Sanatan, the eternal theory, which we have given to the entire world and which we have contributed. So we started from Shunya, we came to Shabd, we then moved to Ras. What after Ras? Next thing is, or next contribution of Indian aesthetics. What after Ras? And then we talk about structure and meaning. The final thing which I would like to say, I would like to talk about Indian aesthetics and the power of Indian aesthetics and its contribution to world literature, is the aestheticians after Anandavardhan. Kuntak came, and I'll let you know how Kuntak's theory was received well by the Western world. And he says, when you say something directly, again, Kuntak is from Kashmir. Kashmir is having, let me tell you, my audience, that Kashmir is having great contribution in Indian aesthetics or in the field of aesthetics for the entire world. So Kuntak is again a Kashmiri aesthetician. And Kuntak came out with his book, Vakroti Jeevitam, which is the giving a twist to your text for meaning. And he gives an example. Kuntak says, when you say that moon is the brightest object in the sky, and moon is, you can see the moon, the bright moon during night in the sky. He says that's a plain thing. If you give a twist to this sentence, it becomes very beautiful. So he's adding beauty now. Very scientifically, he's adding beauty and changing this structure. He's moving away from Ferdinand de Saussure's theory, or Ferdinand de Saussure, which who talks about two structures. Kuntak, much before Saussure, says that if you give a small twist, it brings beauty. And he speaks this sentence in a different way, that the moon is the lord of night. So which added beauty, which added respect, which added ethics, which added value, which added science and philosophy to this sentence. And it was well received, it was well appreciated, well understood by, and sort of respect was also created in the mind of the audience or readers. Similar thing when S.T. Coleridge talks about ornaments. So Coleridge, why I like Coleridge, because Coleridge introduces very slowly the theory of ornaments and theory of increasing the sense and essence of certain things. In the Ancient Mariner, he writes two, three things. He says, there is a quatrain where he says, her lips were red. Okay, there is no twist in the meaning. And everybody knows that this may be something ornamental for ladies, and this is generally, this is what you witness every day. Her lips were red, her locks were free. Now, a little thing is added. If you go back to T.S. Eliot and talks about the hyacinth girl and her hair, wet hair. So, two things now, a little fear if locks are free, or the symbol of creation. So, her lips were red, her locks were free, her skin was white as leprosy. Now, something strange. This creates strange thing in the mind of the reader, how this man is creating an image that her skin was white as leprosy, the very strange comparison, not usual comparison. And then finally says, the nightmare life and death was she who sucks man's blood. So he personifies death very slowly, increases fear, gives twist to the words, and creates a different sense. And one more thing, which he gives example that whatever you say in prose can easily be said in poetry, in poetic form, in rhythmic form, which adds beauty to the text. So April, June, September, and November are having 30 days. This is a common statement which we make, and this is the truth. But Coleridge says this can be said in another way, which adds beauty to this expression, and he gives you the example. 30 days had September, April, June, and November. It becomes rhythmic and it adds beauty, and it becomes rather beautiful now. So Kuntak says that when you give twist to the word and you readjust your words, I was reading one sentence from the former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. He has written, wine, comma, I know. Now this sentence could easily be written, I know wine. If you look at the poetry of the former Prime Minister Bihari Vajpayee, he has excellently used words at different places, which are not actually the right place as per the structure. Paromita, how much time can I take? 5 more minutes?
Okay, sir. Okay.
All right. So when you use words, wine, I know. So the grammarians of this world, today's world, they say that there are two parts of a sentence, which is one is focus and the second one is theme. So the first part is your theme and last part is focus, because you keep in mind the last part of the sentence, which is the latest part. So wine, I knew, it means you made your focus as your theme, and your theme means you are more, well acquainted with this particular liquid. So he says that this sentence means I have consumed wine. And such sentences, when you use in poetry, Coleridge uses, other recitations use, they create a sort of beauty. So my audience, because there is a limit of time and this is an ocean, you cannot confine it to a particular area. There are many other things which we will talk at another occasion, but Indian aesthetics has given very scientific explanations to everything. Indian aestheticians, they have given certain things to this world which are unique even today. And after Kuntak, people came, Dandin came, Brahma came, Rukmani Devi came. But they were talking about ornaments and style and beauty, which is a completely different subject and which needs another 1 hour to explain. But Indian aesthetics, the main thing which we can take away today is the complex blend of science and philosophy. And philosophy doesn't mean that there is a fixed meaning. This is your antargyan, whatever you perceive, whatever you receive, your brain will interpret it, your brain will supply a different meaning, and that meaning may or may not be closed. So that's why we have added science to this beauty, that unless beauty is scientific, it is absurd. And we do not want absurdity. We are having no Godo like thing which we keep waiting for, and we commit ultimately suicide. No, we are life giving. Our theory is life giving. We not only give life, these theories also help you for sustenance of life. So finally, I just say one thing which we need to follow from Indian aesthetics, that Indian aesthetics teaches us to find yourself, as we were talking earlier about finding ourselves, that we are lost in this world. Okay, we are very much part of the universe, like electron, which is the part of the element. We are tiny beings. We are lost in this world, and how can we find ourselves in this world? So I recite 4 lines which were ever written by me in a Hindi poem. मिट्टी हूँ मिट्टी में अपना वजूद तलाशता हूँ, वक्त की रेत पर मिटे कुछ निशान तलाशता हूँ, मैं राम बनूं या रहीम मेरे बस की बात नहीं, इसलिए रोज अपने भीतर अपने आप को तलाशता हूँ. We need to find out ourselves. Thank you very much.
आदरणीय डॉक्टर देवेंद्र सिंह सर के अत्यंत गंभीर और ज्ञानवर्धक व्याख्यान के लिए हार्दिक आभार. Your lecture has enriched today's webinar with deep academic insight and meaningful reflections. Now, moving forward, I am really delighted to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Vibhuti Gaur ma'am, who is currently an associate professor in the Department of English at Indira Gandhi National Open University. She is a gold medalist and recipient of the Government of India's Ministry of HRD scholarship. She has taught and served in academic capacities at JNU and the University of Delhi too. Her areas of teaching and research include Indian aesthetics, knowledge systems, classical literature, post-colonial and diaspora studies, gender studies, oral narratives, performance and cultural studies, film studies, English language, teaching and digital humanities. She has contributed significantly to the recognition of Haryanvi literature and language in academic discourse and has translated several folk narratives into English. She is also actively associated with Swayam, Swayam Prabha, E-Vidya Bharati, Gyan Darshan TV, and Gyan Vani Air. Now, I would like to request Dr. Vibhuti Gaur ma'am for a very significant lecture. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible enough. I'm audible, Paromita ji?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Respected Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Hindi University, Professor Nandini Sahu, who's an eminent scholar, is full of inspirational energies. She's a very warm person. I had the privilege to know her personally as my colleague in IGNOU.
It's 11 o'clock.
She's had a stellar life, and that I was a witness to by knowing her, beautiful renditions of her poetry that we used to enjoy together. So thank you so much, Professor Nandini, for having me here. It's a real privilege. It's so good to see Professor Devender here. I would thank Hindi University for allowing me to share the e-space with him after many years. So he is my respected colleague and a person to look forward to. And it's nice to see Dr. Paromita here, who's been a Sutradhar throughout for coordinating everything from both the ends. Distinguished scholars, dear colleagues, friends who joined this talk through different platforms. So yes, I am with Professor Devendra, to congratulate this university for this excellent series, that Professor Nandini had planned, and it's being executed in a wonderful way. And I'm sure it's going to be bounded up finally with purpose, and with a lot of content. So congratulate once again. So here, like in her introductory speech that Professor Nandini gave, she was keen actually to address some larger issues relating to Indian poetics vis-a-vis world poetics. So I'll try to kind of rephrase and reframe my lecture accordingly, and maybe I'm able to kind of take it from less to textual and more to larger canvas, which she was keen to focus on. So herein, I would like to share a bit of my slide before we move on. Yes. So my today's my sharing my space with you would be regarding this thing of comparative aesthetics. How do we place Indian poetics vis-a-vis the world poetics? So for me, I would begin with a very fundamental question. I would try to actually have a dialogue so that I can kind of simplify things a bit, and understand these concepts in a larger framework, and so that the subtle things can move on. So, as I said, I begin with a very fundamental question here, which is what happens, when human beings, they do not merely live, but they begin to interpret life. What happens when a community does not merely speak, but begins to speak through shared symbols, rituals, memories, you can say emotions, different metaphors, different values? Now, that is the moment when culture enters into the discourse, which is very important to know, because all kind of these aesthetics, poetics, whatever we frame here, they origin from subtle philosophies of different civilizations. Now, a group of people together, when they try to do something more, they try to add meaning to their life. They try to speak beyond words through symbols, as I said, rituals, and all that thing, So that is the moment when something called as culture gets into the discourse. And that is the moment, when in life, we start reflecting upon things. We want to live little more in different meanings, different senses. And that is the time when reflection begins. That experience that we are undergoing, it kind of translates into art. Experience translates into philosophy. Experience translates into poetics. And experience translates into aesthetics. Now, this is different for all the civilizations. I am a Bharatiya. My life, my emotions, values, discourses, my reflection, my experiences that have turned into art, that have turned into philosophy, that have turned into poetics and aesthetics will be different. So, a Bharatiya person with a shared experience, yes, it becomes a community. Community turns into a culture with shared values. Now, culture If you add language to it, it turns into a discourse. Discourse, if it is reflected upon, it becomes philosophy, it becomes poetics, it becomes aesthetics. So therefore, culture is not mere decoration of a life, It is a very, very deep lived grammar through which a civilization thinks, a civilization feels, it remembers, it argues, it celebrates also, it creates, and also it refines. Because without culture, discourse would only remain an exchange of information. With culture, discourse changes into exchange of meaning. Now, this is the point from where I would wish to begin my lecture today. That's comparative aesthetics, Indian poetics in the world poetics. Now, my central argument here is that Indian poetics is not a dead classical archive. Okay, it's a very continuous, it's cumulative, it's very living, it's throbbing intellectual traditions. It doesn't suffer from kind of sharp ruptures, breaks and discontinuities that characterizes many phases of Western poetics. I remember, while as a student, my professors used to say that we used to question that why, when you talk about the British chronology, and British these Western aesthetics, why one age becomes a reaction to the other? Why there's a kind of a conflict of a different kind, Why do we experience violence? Why one has to be pitted against the other? There was something missing. So, as I said, it always exhibited these breaks and very, 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 in a very simplified way. We used to make ourselves understand, that that's how a modernism needs to look at. That's how a postmodernism used to be looked at. That's how a post-structuralism used to be looked at. You have to question things. You have to keep deriving meanings. Derrida taught us in deconstruction. But there was something amiss somewhere, which personally speaking, I was not able to place. And precisely that's the reason that pushed me back in 2009 when I took up, doing PhD, from JNU, that we really wanted to get everything together. And that's how that pushed me to actually do a research, which was, into researching a regional folk literature and trying to find that where I can find my bearings. So this particular thing, that we are, so this entire, this nuance of thought, it is reflected, when it comes to Indian poetics. You move from Vedic work to Upanishadic Samvad. You move from Bharata's Rasa, like Professor Devender spoke about contextually at length, and to Anandvardhan Dhwani. This movement from Kuntak Vakrokti to Kshemendra Auchitya, from Bhartrihari's fort to folk, to bhakti. It doesn't stop at one. It's a cumulative. It goes on adding. It's a continuous continuum. It's so beautiful. It moves on to folk, bhakti gets in, it moves on to ritual, performative traditions also. In Haryana, we have sang. So it's not merely a theory of literature. It's not merely a theory of criticism either. What is it? We are blessed that we have a tradition, a genealogy of philosophy that talks about Vedic and Upanishadic wisdoms. We have a philosophy that teaches us first you should know what you are. What is your origin? How do you identify yourself with that origin? And after you have identified what to do after that, decide your purpose. That's the cultural framework of mind. It is not that you've lived afar and then you are trying to deconstruct things. That's essentially what has happened, unfortunately, with the Western poetics. So we do not have just a mere theory of literature. It's a theory of consciousness. It's a theory of an experience that takes you from mortal to immortal world. It's a theory that takes you to salvation, to moksha. It's a theory of emotion, that kind of a culture, that kind of a refinement of the soul. Because in Indian tradition, in Indian philosophical systems, or the knowledge generation system, through which this entire literary and criticism comes off, we are not just a belief system that we are given a certain thing, and that's how it is. No. We are an inquiry-driven nation. We have inquiry-driven civilization. So our wisdom of ideas that we have inherited so proudly, so fondly, it kind of drives us to move from gross to subtle, the journey from external to internal world, from object to subject. And that subject is not the individual subject. That subject is a selfless subject, from manifest to unmanifest. So we do have, some kind of, when we kind of go into this comparative mode, very closely, the romantic phase came very close to Indian wisdom tradition, like when it spoke about, from object to subject. You talk about Wordsworth and Patanjali Yoga Sutra. They have strong kind of, intimacy as far as the ideas are concerned. But the Indian tradition, the Bharatiya wisdom tradition, takes us in a complete journey. It's a hand holding. You are left nowhere to find things for yourself. That is the beauty of it. So before we go into what is actually the Indian poetics all about, or Western poetics, we should be very, very clear of what this comparative study, if we are doing a kind of this epistemic regarding ontological studies, what exactly are this comparison, what is the purpose of comparison. So I, as a Bharatiya here talking about it, would my idea of comparing things would be different, because my civilization has taught me to be rooted, not to be disconnected, because maybe I'm fortunate enough that though there were things, that were part of a very conservative tradition, but that's how the tradition is all about. The stale has to go off, the living has to remain. And that's what has precisely happened with us, fortunately. So my technique of comparing things would be different. My idea of aesthetics would be different. My idea of what poetics would definitely be different, because it depends where I have located myself. My civilization has located myself. It's going to be very comprehensive, very organic, very interrelated. So what exactly is a comparative study? So for me, comparison doesn't mean just casually, placing two things side by side. It would mean, yes, placing two or more traditions. It could be text, it could be cultures, languages, knowledge systems, yes, so that each illuminates the other. This is important. That's the experience that I have got through my civilizational genealogy. I would compare things not to pit one against the other, but to illuminate each other. A normal comparative study would ask what is similar and what is different, and so what does one tradition reveal the other does not. But no, comparative study is not kind of comparing in that sense. It's not even imitation, not borrowing, It's not mental colonization. Because when the Western poetics would do a comparison, we've had a history of British colonialism. And what about today? We still are fighting. We still are holding seminars asking for decolonization. Anyway, I refrain from these terms, and have my own terms, which my civilization has taught me. It has nothing to do with being colonized and decolonized. It is a living tradition. It was there. It's still there. So at best, my civilization has taught me that comparison could be for a samvad, for a disciplined dialogue. It could be a dialectic. And what is aesthetics? Simple terms, we would ask, that yes. So aesthetics, it could be like what makes things beautiful, what makes things powerful, what makes things emotionally more effective, artistically more meaningful. But in Bharatiya context, aesthetics cannot be reduced to just a superficial beauty. It is not merely what looks beautiful to sensory organs. Yes, Wordsworth, the sense perception took us a little deeper into it. We had different layers of imagination. Coleridge stated that. But what after that? Always, we were left stranded, trying to find questions that could satisfy the unquenchable, the hunger for something, that kind of satiates the civilizational hunger. Because every time the search was for what is manifested, what is there, experience didn't have much space, the anubhav, the anubhuti. So it is not about just what is beautiful, it is about what is inwardly experienced, what is relished, like the rasa theory tells us, Bharat Muni's. What is relished? And we don't stop at that. We also get into the process of transformation. Now, interestingly, when we studied, we studied all the Western texts through the Western literary criticism, So they had words for, they had these, they are English words. They are coming from their dictionaries, transformation, relishing, and all that. But important is what you pick up for framing your theory. That is important. What you pick up for framing your literary critical, the entire lot. We picked up relish. We picked up experience. We picked up the movement from external to internal. We picked up consciousness. We picked up transformation. So therefore, we picked up the movement from Saundarya, like Professor Devender also mentioned, it is about Saundarya. We picked up that. But the journey continued from Saundarya, which has the inner, yes, implications. From Saundarya to Anubhava, from beauty to experience, from the outer to the inner relish. Now, moving on. So then what essentially is this poetics all about? It is, when you have such groundings, the poetics would definitely talk about it systematically. When you talk about these things in a systematic way. How the literary effusions be in terms of poem, drama, story, or narrative, what is the purpose of it? And how does language becomes literary? All these questions, how emotions become aesthetic, and how this journey of from a poet, you travel to being a reader, spectator, habitually, or whatever, the same person could be. So, like in the Western tradition, we have Aristotle poetics. It is asking about how tragedy, it works through plot, pity, mimesis, fear, catharsis. Now, in the Indian tradition, we have Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, Bharata's Natya Shastra, and the long tradition, after him. And it's asking some deeper question. So when in the poetics, we are talking about tragedy in terms of all this, pity, fear, catharsis. And what Bharata's Natya Shastra is asking? Since his consciousness that has driven the conceptual models, it's coming from a civilization which has gone deeper into it. So he would be asking a question with the same words being provided by the language, but he's picked up the different kind of words to phrase his questions. And that's how the generations get built up. So he's asking how art awakens rasa in the Sahridaya. So this sense of something, driving one to emotions of pity and fear. But herein, he's asking about how this particular thing is awakening one from inside. This term called as awakening, is something that changes the entire discourse. So this distinction is really crucial. And this is something which all of us, when we sit, we deliberate, we talk to ourselves, we urge for. But we do not, we never used to find all these terms when we we kind of just read the Western and interpreted text through it. It's not that they were not existing. They were existing in some form or the other, but they did not become the mainstream discourse, which had to be picked up and delivered. So when much of the modern criticism, it is asking, what does this text mean? The Indian poetics would ask, what does this text awaken? So meaning is cognitive, but rasa, which is doing this process, is transformative. So therefore, if we move on to little more into like what there are various civilizations, so like for example in our civilization, Bharatiya civilization, we have various kinds of emotions that are being spoken about, like Professor Devender also spoke about Bharti Haris and Rasa and Vakrokti and all that. So we have Rata. Rata is one principle, that is kind of all-encompassing principle in Bharatiya philosophy. We have Rata, we have Dharma. From here emanates all these effusions of what you have. Because the grounding of the philosophers have been on these. It's never been on philosophies that talk about, which is very, philosophies that are little, they start from the middle and they do not know how to reach the end of the continuum. They really do not know circularity process. They are not really exposed to organic and interrelation of everything. So if you have people who are, the cultivated on this particular kind of a culture, they would definitely, talk about rasa, they would talk about vag, they would talk about anubhav, they would talk about this cosmic order. They would talk about, other siddhants that are part of our Bharatiya poetics. Similarly, Greeks also had, they spoke about various keywords. Chinese also have various keywords for that matter. Egyptians too, they have, you know. Even the modern West, you know, like I said, the modern critical literary theories that we have, they talk about, they have their own, vocabulary. And when we talk about Indian poetics and Western poetics, you know, there are various axes through which we can talk about these particular things. So according to me, you know, it could be emotion could be one of the axes, you know, wherein we talk about rasa, they talk about catharsis, you know, and then there is affect theory also to it. Reader response theory also is there. We can talk through representation, wherein we can talk about image, narrative worlds, we can talk about meaning. So, wherein we talk about Dwani, you know, and then sign symbols that we have in this. So, sure, like the other speaker was talking about interpretation models we have in the West also. Then we can compare them in terms of forms, you know, different kind of styles, ornaments, what is the structure, genre, you know, and of course how the receiver has received, you know, just as a spectator, or it's a reader response, or it's a received by a reader, you know, which is awakened. So as I said, every civilization, it has signature words to itself when it comes to depiction of culture, aesthetics, poetics, you know, which means that how they've experienced life, how they experience beauty, society, truth, and of course the samaj, the people around them. So then yes, then we can talk about further. So before that, it's like I said, Western poetics has given all these valuable concepts. Yes, you know, it's not that we have to dismiss these, you know, as I said in the beginning, when a Bharatiya does a comparison, it is different, you know, it is to illuminate each other. It is never like dismissing. So we do recognize, you know, but yes, we also need to recognize with it that all this has happened through breaks. The classical phase came, then the medieval came, Renaissance came, we had the neoclassical, then a break, then romantic, then a break, then we had the modern phase, and then the structuralist, then the post-structuralist, post-modern, you know, and all that. So as we stated, you know, that each phase, you know, often kind of it challenged or it overturned the previous one. But in the Indian poetics, you know, since it was very continuous, you know, so it didn't destroy Bharata to produce Anindavardhan. It did not erase rasa to create Dwani. It did not discard Alankar to develop Vakrupti. It commented, yes, but it expanded also. It refined itself, you know, and it absorbed, resituated. So it has grown like a banyan tree. The Indian poetics, it has grown like a banyan tree. The root has remained, but the new branches, they have descended and they have become roots again. So that's why it's the Indian poetics. It is not merely an ancient tradition. It is a very shastric continuum, I would say. It has moved through source text. It has moved through commentaries, then sub-commentaries, which are as good as a source text, you know, and which actually they need to be studied along with the source text. And they have done refinements and applications and reinterpretations, but they have all gone together on a container. So a primary text with this authoritative commentary, they have come together, they have become a field of knowledge generation, you know, and so this tradition of Bharatiya poetics, it is not a linear one like we can have for the Western poetics. It is very layered. It is not broken. It's very, very layered. So it begins with Vak, you know, which is sacred, meaningful speech, you know, and it has proper foundational stages also. So in the walk imagination, the speech, it's very creative. So that's the first thing that had come. The oral thing, the supreme, the oral word. So it is creative. We all know about it, yes. It is ordered, it is responsible. So we have this Vedic thing, sam gachadva, sam vadatva. Walk together and speak together. So that's where the discourse has started. The collectiveness of the thing, collective attunement rather. Like in Upanishadic tradition, it becomes, jigyasa. It becomes prasanna. When people get together, move together, speak together, it's a samvad that is created. Amidst questions. How can we forget Gagi questioning Yajnavalkya? How can we forget Nachiketa questions Yam? We cannot forget Swetaketu corrected by Udalka. Here, culture is not a kind of a passive obedience, It's, as we stated, it's inquiry driven. It's not something, a belief, a system that has come down to us. So it's a very disciplined questioning, in the questioning, in the presence of some axiomatic truths. That's how the Indian poetics is kind of rooted. So the greatest strength of the Bharatiya poetics is that the tradition is that it is not separate from life. So the way you've lived your life, that's how it flows in the things that you write. So we've seen so many poets, now it's not a comment, but we've seen so many Western poets, the kind of poetries that they have written. So obviously, it would emanate from the kind of circumstances that they had. Now, Marx looked the society in terms of have-nots. He could not go beyond it because that's what he saw when the Industrial Revolution came. But that's not a limitation when, as a person coming from a Bharatiya mainland, they can go beyond it. They have the text to guide them to go beyond it. So it's a disciplined inquiry, rooted in axiomatic truths which have already been established and grounded by civilizational wisdom coming down to us. So there's no question that one could just scatter and still have no clue of the things. So that's the greatest strength of Bharatiya tradition, that it's separate from, that it doesn't separate knowledge from life. Language is there, but ethics are also there. So aesthetics are there, but consciousness is also there with us. Beauty is there, refinement also is there. Like Chandogya Upanishad, it says, Tattvamasi. And Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also states, Astoma Satgamaya, Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya. They are not mere spiritual utterances. They are cultural principles of interpretation. With us, spiritual is no different from the physicality of it. They are together. If they are together, you would have rasa theory. You would have dhvani theory. And bhartiharis. You would have vakrokti. You would have kuntaka. So they tell us that language should be elevating the consciousness. It is great. Literary criticism is not just about winning an argument. It must move us from darkness to light. Otherwise, what is the purpose? In 18th century, we do remember, all of us, that when we talk about the characteristics of 18th century, it is about something, the text should be with the purpose and all that. But Romanticism talks about no purpose. It is about where you stand, the Wordsworth egotistical sublime, how I want to see the world. Now, both the things look slightly incomplete, There is something that that has to be added to it, you know. So the thing is, the clear purpose which was missing, it's been provided to us. So why not? So we are no more to be studied as an appendix, you know. We allow ourselves the central chair, you know, in this roundtable discussions. So therefore, so as we've spoken about, like, Greeks also have their own set of things. They talk about logos. Chinese have when, you know. But Bharatiya tradition have its own set of keywords. And of course, like I spoke about the Banyan model of poetics, as I would like to call it. And then if you move further on, you know, that emotions are being transformed into aesthetic relish, right? We talk about rasa, you know, which is going to turn into anubhav. Now, private emotion becomes a shared aesthetic experience because we kind of elevate it, transcend it, you know. So this is what is taught to us. Karuna, which is not just being the sad or being empathetic, you know, it is also relishing that, you know, that takes us beyond these words. So therefore, we can talk little, you know, about now from catharsis to rasa theory. Aristotelian poetics we have Bharatiya poetics. If Aristotelian poetics addresses questions like how does tragedy work, so we address how does the art awaken rasa. They talk about pity, fear. We talk about anubhav, bhava. So they talk about spectator affected by tragic structures. We talk about sahridya, relishing this aesthetic delight. And what is the end point in catharsis? It is purgation, clarification, purification. But end point in Bharata poetics is transformation. So that's how the keywords that we have picked up has made all the difference. Now, if we talk about Anandavardhan's Dhvani, it's all the suggestion. The suggestion is the kind of the center from where all kind of meanings they are emanating. So what is the meaning that is not directly stated, you know, but it is culturally suggested? So one is the literal meaning, then Dhvani would carry all kind of senses, the memory, the emotion, the context, you know. And so therefore, if there is a lotus and lamp, it is not just physicality, or even if we apply the Western things to it, it could talk about the structure, it could talk about some kind of multi-representational truths, you know, or we could bring in Derrida into it and talk about, okay, let's go on deconstructing, that's fine. But what after that? Is it taking us from darkness to light? Light on essentially what we understand from it, you know, because there is an energy everywhere, entropy, you know, but there is some sensibility to what is happening around, you know, at a very atomic level, at a very, you know, the huge comprehensive levels. So how do you get that? And it is not just at this particular moment, it is many moments of hours that have gone by. The real meaning is that it doesn't come with simply deconstructing. Deconstructing on what parameters? What are we taking? From where are we beginning? We are beginning from in the middle. We are just taking it to somewhere in the middle. We really don't know. So it is a civilizational fabric of meaning that has to be traveled along with, you know, whatever that we are doing. Are we there trained enough? We need to be that trained enough to actually suggest that what this particular meaning is. We cannot be selective about the meaning. That's a very responsible thing that we've been doing in kind of this colonial hangover that we still are a part of. Even decolonization will not take this. Decolonization, even we are decolonizing, we need to then update ourselves with the tools that civilization has given us. So then we have Kuntakas, the power of oblique expression. Dr. Paromita, how much time do I have?
Ma'am, you can take 5 more minutes.
Thank you. So herein he talks about the poetic beauty that has emerged through deviation, not a straight speech, use of irony, wit, satire, all this is there. So, and we have Alankar, it also intensifies meaning through use of images, metaphors, sounds, and patterns, And we have Riti Siddhant, whereas the stylistic are considered, So now, interestingly, all this since I was doing my research on Haryanvi folk narratives, so I tried to bring all these elements into it. So that is slightly, I would try to wind it up, by that. So it was kind of because I wanted to bring the entire continuum together, from the heavy Vedic Upanishad philosophy, that we've had. Even before that, this was not bounded into Vedas and Upanishads, From the word itself, I wanted to bring it back to it, because oral is seamless. Oral is ageless, and we have to apply all this to again folk literature from classic to folk, and I come down, So that was just a literary exercise that I went to it, and of course I kind of could relate parts, to different, uh, things of caste and gender and post-coloniality, and whatever did in that research. So, so as I said, I discovered Rasa, Alanka, Riti Siddhant, and everything in my, there's a Haryanvi folk narrative thing that I took up. It's a paucity of time, so I'll have to quickly, just wind up. And so there were this Ragini, Sang, and women songs and all. So how it happened, the rhythm, audience, pause, and how my Bharatiya poetics, would look at each and everything, And it was a very fulfilling experience. So because it taught me that it's not just the folklore that it's not a factual data, but it's so aesthetic. Everything it's just flowing down without any bridges. So it was, as I said, it's not just the data, but it was a living archive. The folk I found was a living archive of rasa. So my theories would not just limit me, because when I limit me just to the very classic thing, no. The Bharatiya poetics, they travel well down, even if you apply to the folk, so even the unmanifested, so it's the folk I found was a living archive of rasa, and all this translation that I did with it. It also revealed wonderful things, in comparative aesthetics. So I discovered Hasya, Karuna, Veera, then Shringaras also in it. And so there are a bit of examples that are here, but since the time would not allow me, so... And I also made a kind of a comparison with other kind of folk narratives that I had: Rajasthani, Punjabi, Braj, Tamil also. Tolkapiyam, wonderful Bharatiya poetics text to be studied, And since, I'm preparing this course for IGNOU that would be floated across, all the, the national and international centers. So Tolkapiyam we've considered as exceptional text to be part of all that. So Rasa, Dhwani, Vakrokti, Lokadharmi. So getting all this together, and through these lenses, I try to look at Haryanvi folk narratives. So I think it's, I would just simply just wind up, since just in modern terms, quickly, rasa, it talks about affect theory, reader response criticism. If you want to compare for the students who joined here, Dhwani's in Bharatiya poetics could speak to semiotics, hermeneutics, deconstruction. Vakrokti can be, kind of be compared with stylistics, irony, defamiliarization, auchitya, that Bharatiya poetics has. It can speak to the decorum of Western poetics, genre theory. We have contextual criticisms, Then Lokdharmi, then when it comes to the folk poetics, they speak to the performance studies and even ethnopoetics, And it's a very interesting term, sadharikaran. When you speak to universality and shared effect, you are not selectively picking up, but you talk about sadharikaran. And of course, Bhartrihari's sport, you can talk in terms of philosophy of language that the Western poetics has, So, but it's not to say that, we are not here to say that we had everything before the West. That is a very tempting and very shallow statement to make. We are not here. Rather, a stronger claim for me would be here that Indian poetics is a holistic conceptual universe for thinking about literature, language, emotion, consciousness. So it expands the theoretical universe, right? So therefore, we need a kind of a framework, that takes from lok to the world, that takes us from bolis to poetics, and that takes us from the literary courtyards to to something, if we can do a comparative aesthetics, So the future of world poetics, on a concluding note, I would say it cannot be built only from the European theoretical teenagers. So nor can the Indian poetics remain locked within the Sanskrit departments also. We need to open up. So it must enter theory, comparative literature, translation studies and performative studies, folk studies, digital literature, digital humanities also we can take it, and global aesthetics to sort of, so it must speak to ecology also, gender, then oral memories, communities, translation and civilizational futures, so it would be wonderful if we can do that. So a Bharatiya framework would not be narrow, exclusionary, it would be rooted and it would be dialogic. So it would say that let us compare, but not from inferiority. Let us translate, but not erase the difference. Let us theorize, but we should not forget, the folk singer, the village storyteller, the grandmother, the wise fool, so to say, and so because sometimes, the deepest theories, they do not come wearing that gown. They also come from when you're sitting on a charpai, you're sitting, and the whole village is around you. So therefore, to conclude, I would say the comparative aesthetics, it should move beyond the East-West binary. So it must become a many-sided dialogue among the classical, vernacular, written, performative, and global traditions. It should be one of the most powerful conceptual languages. Indian poetics should become one of the powerful conceptual languages, and its continuity should not just be in the museum continuity. And therefore, I really appreciate these lectures. It has really taken it out as a mainstream thing, so it's a living continuity. So if rasa is the soul of aesthetic experience, the dhwani is the depth, I would say. Vakrokti, if it is wit, auchitya is the discipline, I would say. Alankar is the beauty, lokdharmi is the earth, and sadharikaran, its universality. So Indian poetics is not merely a part of world poetics, it is one of the great ways of reimagining the world poetics itself. So the matter is very simple, I would say. The story that belongs to one's village and yet speaks to the world. That is a true literature. Thank you so much. Thank you once again, Professor Paromita, Vice-Chancellor, Madam, for inviting me. Thank you.
आदरणीय डॉक्टर विभूति गौर मैम, आपके इस अत्यंत सार गर्भित और कहा जाए तो विचार उत्तेजक व्याख्यान के लिए हार्दिक आभार। Your lecture has meaningfully highlighted the importance of comparative aesthetics in understanding literary traditions across cultures. अब कार्यक्रम के समापन सत्र में सर्वप्रथम हमारी आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदया एवं माननीय कुलपति प्रोफेसर नंदिनी साहू मैडम के प्रति मैं हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ कि उनके संरक्षण, मार्गदर्शन और प्रेरणा से हिंदी विश्वविद्यालय पश्चिम बंगाल द्वारा तुलनात्मक विश्व साहित्य विषयक इस महत्वपूर्ण वेबिनार का आयोजन संभव हो सका है। मैं आज के दोनों विशिष्ट वक्ताओं आदरणीय डॉक्टर देवेंद्र सिंह सर और आदरणीय डॉक्टर विभूति गौर मैम के प्रति हार्दिक कृतज्ञता व्यक्त करती हूँ कि उन्होंने अपने बहुमूल्य समय, गहन अध्ययन और विशद अनुभव से इस वेबिनार को समृद्ध किया है। आज के दोनों व्याख्यानों ने इंडियन पोएटिक्स, वर्ल्ड पोएटिक्स और इंडियन एस्थेटिक्स के तुलनात्मक अध्ययन को एक नई दृष्टि प्रदान की, जो साहित्य, संस्कृति और सौंदर्य बोध के वैश्विक संवाद को समझने में अत्यंत उपयोगी सिद्ध हो। अंत में मैं हिंदी विश्वविद्यालय पश्चिम बंगाल के सभी सम्मानित अधिकारियों, प्राध्यापकगण, विद्यार्थियों और सभी प्रतिभागियों के प्रति भी हार्दिक आभार एवं धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करती हूँ कि आपने अपनी उपस्थिति और सहभागिता से इस आयोजन को सफल बनाया। विशेष रूप से हिंदी विश्वविद्यालय और हमारी तकनीकी टीम श्री अमन सिंह जी एवं सुश्री काजोरी दास रॉय जी के प्रति हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ, जिनके तकनीकी सहयोग से ये आभासी कार्यक्रम सुचारू रूप से संपन्न हो सका है। आप सभी का पुनः हार्दिक धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।